amount of knowledge Prabhu has of no qualification, but we're going to try to share some pastimes today. And we pray for Vaikuntesha Balaji Prabhu to get well soon. I see Mataji here, so I don't know if Prabhu's here today or not, but I think he had lost his voice a little bit. I know a lot of devotees are sick, including myself, a little bit. Like I haven't recovered from my voice that I lost last week when I gave class. So, everyone please take care of your health, and if you're not feeling too well, we hope you feel better soon. So we'll sing Jai Radha Madhava first. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Radha Kunj Bihari ki Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki. Hi Krishna everyone, again welcome to our Sunday program today. Did it say earlier, I am not Vaikuntesha Balaji Prabhu. And if in case you're wondering, Prabhu's not feeling too well today, so I was requested if I could give class today. So we're going to pray for Prabhu to get well soon. I really liked the topic that Prabhu had selected for the class today, which was the process of surrender. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk to him, so I didn't know what verse he was going to talk about. But I really like this topic because it ties in very beautifully to the seminar that His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu is going to do next week, which is how to pray. And we know that one big way of surrendering to Krishna is by prayers. So it seemed like a really nice lead-on topic. So we're going to continue with that topic today. We're going to take the same topic, the process of surrender, and we're going to read from Bhagavad Gita what Krishna has to say about surrender. So the Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, and in the 18 chapters, Krishna speaks the most about surrendering in which chapter? The 18th chapter, yes. In the 18th chapter, multiple times Krishna uses the word surrender. It's because this is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. We know like one of the most important verses of the Bhagavad Gita, very famous for surrender, is Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papepya Mokshayashyami Ma Shuchaha. Surrender unto me, abandon all forms of religion, and surrender unto me, do not fear. That's the essence of that verse. So today we're not going to pick that verse because everybody knows that verse from the 18th chapter. We're going to pick two other verses we can actually pick two shlokas from the 18th chapter that talk about surrender. So is it on the screen, Prabhu? Okay, so we're going to do both 1861 and 62 because 62 without 61, the translation doesn't go together. So we'll do 1861 first. Would anyone like to read the Sanskrit of this verse? Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. And anyone like to read the translation? Maybe someone from the Prabhu side?
The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy.
Okay, anyone would like to read the purport? It's a small purport. So in this verse, Krishna actually is establishing, we'll talk a bit more about it in a second, he's establishing that he's situated in everyone's heart. So he's at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, because this is 1862, and there are 78 verses in the 18 chapters, so we're at the tail end of the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is reaffirming what his position is as Paramatma here, and in the next verse, he talks about surrendering to this Paramatma. So 1862, would any of the Prabhus like to read the Sanskrit? Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapshyasi shasvatam. Anyone would like, any of the Vaishnavis would like to read the English, please? Anyone? Please. Thank you. Would anyone like to read the purport?
A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, and that would relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature, Rig Veda 1.22.20, Tad Vishnaha Paramam Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything is eternal, everything material is actually spiritual, but Paramam Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishtaha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. So this recommendation that one should surrender onto the Super Soul sitting within means that one should surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as Param Brahma Param Dhama. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of this evidence of great authorities like Narada, Asita, Devada, and Vyasa.
Thank you. We'll chant the Mangala Charan prayers and we will go deeper into what the Bhagavad Gita has to say about surrender. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Stajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyo Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the verses we are reading today from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 61. Verse 81. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. It's very interesting that machine is used 5,000 years ago in the Bhagavad Gita. It's so nice. And then 1862, Tameva Sharanam Gacha Sarva Bhavena Bharata Tat Prasadat Param Shantim Sthanam Prapshyasi Shashvatam. O sign of Bharata, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will understand transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. So in this verse, in the end of the Bhagavad, and in the purport, Prabhupada very beautifully talks about how Krishna is situated in everybody's heart. This point Krishna actually establishes in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita itself, where he says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. He mentions that, I reside in the heart of a brahmana, of an elephant, of a dog, and even a dog eater as the same Paramatma. And Pandita Samadarshana, somebody who is a Pandit, someone who is scholarly, educated, a devotee sees the same Krishna everywhere else. So the Paramatma resides within all of us. These two verses are very beautiful because they give us, in a nutshell, who we need to surrender, why we need to surrender, and how we need to surrender. So it's very important, like, you know, when, I at work sometimes we're told this, when you're making a presentation to some exec, it's so important to tell the story, right? Like what, why, how, when, because otherwise if you don't give those key points, sometimes it's too much information. So where did all the management gurus and all get that from? From Krishna, from the Bhagavad Gita itself. Because after giving 700 shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, well, not 700, what is 78 minus 62? We're at the last 16 verses? 16 verses, right? 16? 78 minus 6. Are you shaking your head? I don't know. 78 minus 62 is 16, right? So 700 minus 16 is 684, right? 608. Please, someone correct me. Yes, silence is very scary. We all have cell phones also. So if my math is wrong, please correct my cell phone. So anyways, so 684 shlokas of Bhagavad Gita have been recited. So someone who has read the entire Gita hopefully has gained this information. But Krishna is so merciful. He's like, let me still give you an executive summary at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. So if you have not patience to read all the 684, at least read the last 16, 17 verses of the Bhagavad Gita and understand what I'm trying to say. So Krishna here is starting by telling who we should surrender to. We should surrender to Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, the Lord that resides within all our heart. And Prabhupada in the purport clearly clarifies that if one is surrendered to the Supreme Lord within, it is being surrendered to Krishna. Because Krishna manifests in three different ways. Krishna manifests as his energy, as the Brahman. Then he manifests as Paramatma, the deity, the soul deity that resides in all of our heart, and as the Supreme Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada here is mentioning very clearly that if one surrenders to the personality of God that is situated in everyone's heart, he not only is directly surrendering to Krishna, but all of their miseries are also vanquished. So who you should surrender to is answered here. Why should you surrender is also answered in this verse where Krishna says in 62, by his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme eternal abode. So when we did the class on the 31st, we quoted this verse from the second chapter of the Gita where Krishna tells Arjuna, without peace, where is the question of happiness? Without peace, what is the question of happiness, right? Everybody wants peace, right? Anybody here who doesn't want peace? Anyone here who just wants to be stressed out and miserable all the time? No? Okay. Anybody here? Anyone? Last call? Anyone? No. We all want to be peaceful, right? Anyone here wants to be sad? Depressed? No. We all want to be happy. It's a fundamental thing. Human nature, right? Nobody wants to be sad. Nobody wakes up, I pray it's going to be a bad day today. No? Often we quote Kunti Devi in this regard when Kunti Devi prays to Krishna for calamities. But it's not like Kunti Devi is waking up in the morning, come Krishna, what new calamity are you going to give me today? Because she's a pure devotee, she's able to see Krishna in that calamity. But if the Pandavas had a choice, do you think they would want their life to be that difficult? No, right? They're grateful that it was difficult, that they could meditate upon Krishna, but nobody wants to be in misery. Even someone who is looking for Krishna, who is miserable, does not want to be in misery. We want peace. So who we surrender? We surrender to Krishna, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam. Why we surrender is that by surrendering we have Param Shantim Sthanam. So we have the transcendental peace and we'll attain the supreme eternal abode. This material world is called Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. It is a place of misery. How much ever you want to sugarcoat that candy, it is not a pleasant place outside. Like, there are moments of joy, Absolutely, there are moments of joy. There are moments where you feel like this is the most wonderful place. But in reality, it is not designed for us to be happy, right? How much ever the world has progressed in terms of happiness, it is not designed for us to be happy. We think about 20 years ago, the problems that we may had, we may have solutions for those problems 20 years later. But are we happier today than we were 20 years before? I don't know. And sometimes you read this. I was discussing this with my parents once. Like, you hear when people say, people were so much more happier, peaceful back then when they didn't have all of these distractions or all of these things that we have to worry about today. But in reality, if you could rewind 20 years before, I don't think people were happy then also, because then they had their own problems that they had to deal with back then that they didn't have to deal with today. So it's like our world is not designed for us to be happy. It's a reality. There's always problems. People find solutions. The solutions bring new problems, and then you find new solutions, and the new solutions bring new problems. Like, it's a cycle there, right? So in order for us to truly become transcendently peaceful, truly become happy, we need to attain the supreme abode. And by surrendering to Krishna, we're able to attain that supreme abode. So that is what Krishna is saying in this verse 62 to Arjuna, that when you surrender to Krishna utterly, completely, then you will attain the supreme eternal abode. It's very important to catch that word utterly. The Sanskrit of that word is sarva bhavena, means in all respects, which means that you are surrendering, our degree of surrender to the Lord is unconditional. It is not based on a certain criteria. That Krishna, I will only surrender to you if you give me a Tesla. Or Krishna, because you gave me a Tesla today, I will surrender to you today for maybe 2-3 months. And then after that, I want something else. I want a Ferrari or something. So then, until I get a Ferrari, I will not surrender to you. Like, sometimes it happens, right? I heard this in a class once, like that famous Aarti bhajan that we sing, Om Jai Jagdish Hare. It's such a beautiful bhajan, but it's like, we're telling Sukh Sampatti Kar Aave. Like, we're actually like demanding the Lord, please bring happiness, like, happy Sukh Sampatti, bring happiness and wealth to my house. Like, what is God, your ATM machine or what? That you put like a dollar bill and Sukh Sampatti will just come out through the thing? No. Like, but so very often, our surrender or our love to the Lord is tainted by conditions. It is natural. And frankly, it's okay. It's okay sometimes. We have to just accept that it's not pure love. Right? It's okay to go to Krishna if you're in a moment of difficulty and pray to Krishna, Krishna help me from this, right? And there's nothing wrong in it. We do it all the time. In fact, it is better that you go to the Supreme Lord to ask Him to get you out of this misery than going to somebody else. But the difference between a true devotee and someone who has still not understood it is that a true devotee tells Krishna, Krishna, please help me get out of this misery, but do what you want to do, that even if you don't take me out of this misery, I will still love you. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the last verse of Shikshashtakam, that is what he says, Ashishava padaratam pinastuma adarshana manmahatam karotva yatha tathava vidata tulampato matprana natas tusayeva naparaha. Whether you handle me roughly by your embrace or make me broken-hearted by not being present before me, you are my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Unconditionally, you are my worshipful Lord. And Krishna and Mahaprabhu establishes that sarva bhavena. In all respects, we have to surrender to the Lord. Whether what Krishna does, we are happy with or we are not happy with, we have to surrender, because we have to have faith in the Supreme Lord that whatever He is doing for our benefit, our happiness. We may not see it immediately, but we will see it later. So when we talk about surrender, we know we have to surrender to the Lord. We know why we surrender, to attain transcendental peace and supreme eternal abode. How we surrender to the Lord is unconditionally. If we always surrender and with our full faith in the Lord. How do we develop this? How do we develop unconditional surrender? How do you, think of your own life, Is there anybody in your life who you trust implicitly, like you trust? I hope there is somebody in your life. Other than Krishna, is there anybody Sorry? Parents. Okay, good answer, Ayushi. Why do you trust your parents? Why? Because you know they'll be right. But how do you know they're right? Faith. And how is that faith developed? Experience and love. So the way our relationship with our parents is there for most part is because we have taken the time to invest in our relationship with them. Right? I was telling this to the teenagers today. The parents will be very happy. We had an entire talk today about loving your parents. So if they don't fulfill their assignment, you have a tough week. This coming week, please talk to me afterwards. Because they all have instructions this week, right? You're the only three sitting here, so I can look at the three of you, so sorry for that. But on all seriousness, it is very important for us to cultivate relationships. Priyanshu is there too, sorry, I just saw him. He's hiding away from me. But yes. So, no, actually no, sorry, that's Akhil. Akhil also should love your parents this week, at least. But on seriousness, why do we love our parents? Why do we have faith in our parents? Because we know about our parents, right? Similarly, when we invest in knowing about Krishna, we are able to have faith in Krishna. And very often we get disappointed with what happens, like I've been chanting for so many years, why Krishna put me in this position? Why do we feel like that? Because we've not invested in knowing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you've not invested in knowing about Krishna, how can you surrender to Krishna? How can you surrender to somebody that you don't know enough about? That's blind faith, right? And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is so clearly telling Arjuna to not have blind faith. And the proof, this is why the Bhagavad Gita is such an amazing scripture. And I've said this before too. Arjuna was Krishna's such a dear friend, right? Such a close relationship Arjuna and Krishna had. After Arjuna had his moment of crisis where he didn't want to fight and he tells Krishna, help me. If Krishna said immediately in verse 2:8, Arjuna, you must fight because I am telling you to fight. Do you think Arjuna would not have fought? Do you think Arjuna's performance would have been diminished a little bit because Krishna told him so? No. But yet Krishna took that time to get Arjuna to the point where Arjuna was, oh, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what in this purport where, Krishna's Prabhupada is explaining so beautifully that Arjuna accepts in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna starts talking in 2:8. Almost 600, about 500 odd verses have come. It takes Arjuna up to that level of verses to completely accept Krishna, where he says, after the Chatushloki of the Bhagavad Gita happens, where Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Param Bhagavan. At that point he says, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is where Arjuna accepts that Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead. So it means Arjuna's acceptance of Krishna being Supreme Personality Godhead is not blind faith. It has come with questioning. It has come to the point where now I accept, because we've had this conversation, I get to you. So Krishna is very clearly showing to us that surrender doesn't happen overnight. Surrender happens only when it is realized knowledge. Because if you do, because there's many ways you can surrender, right? You can surrender because there's blind faith. Somebody is telling you, surrender, you can surrender. When we were kids, right? I mean, it happens all the time. When you're kids, I remember my parents would take me to temples, but they wouldn't sit too patiently. I can't believe I'm saying this this is broadcast. Social media, my parents are wonderful devotees. This is not meant to be a criticism against them. And if you're listening to this class, I really appreciate you. But I don't think my parents would sit me outside. And to be fair, it's not practical all the time, right? When you go to Tirupati, you can't tell a 3-year-old what Lord Balaji is and explain them to appreciate. At that point, before somebody says Jargandi, it's look at the God and come out, right? It's like that. But no one explains this is why you're going to the temple. So there is a bit of surrender because you're told to surrender, right? When someone tells you to surrender, that surrender is very short-lived. At that moment you may surrender, then it goes away. Or a fear-based surrender, which is also very short-lived. Desire-based surrender, this is all very short-lived, right? That's why even in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about the 4 kinds of people that approach to him, the first 3 categories of people, they're not in it for the long haul. They're in it because, they're in it for some wealth, or they're in it for some desire to fulfill. Once the desire is fulfilled, they may come back to Krishna, they may not come back to Krishna. Someone who's miserable may come back to Krishna, may not come back to Krishna. Someone who's just, inquisitive but not really surrendering, once he's read the Bhagavatam, oh, this is interesting, he may not be interested. But only someone who's interested in cultivating a relationship with Krishna is in for the long haul. So our mood has to be to cultivate a relationship with Krishna for the long haul. Valentine's Day is just coming up in the corner, it's like a couple of days away. And while you think about cultivating, celebrating your loved ones, and I hope you all take time to celebrate your loved ones, especially newlyweds in the audience. Hint, hint, Snehprabhu. So while you're doing that, take this as an opportunity, as a day to what can you do to cultivate your relationship with Krishna? Do you know everything about Krishna there is to know? The answer is no. There is so many, we invest in cultivating, because when we invest in cultivating our relationship with Krishna, then the process of surrender is so easy, because you'll automatically surrender. When we understand Lord Krishna and we understand Lord Krishna's mercy, then the process of surrender is almost a no-brainer. Why would we not want to surrender to the Lord who's so merciful? And the more and more, and that's why Bhagavatam is so beautifully written. Like when we think of the context of Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj hearing this from Sukadev Goswami, why does Sukadev Goswami only pick certain things to talk about to Parikshit Maharaj? Bhagavatam is not an all-encompassing life stories of everything Supreme Personality of Godhead did in all of his incarnations, right? It's nothing. Krishna's pastimes are described in the most depth there, but in general, if you see, the Bhagavatam is not covering everything. But the reason Bhagavatam is so powerful, because it shows Lord Krishna's mercy. It shows Krishna's mercy to anyone who had a desire to surrender. Whether they surrendered or they didn't surrender, in many cases, even just a desire to surrender, like we spoke last week, like Dhruva Maharaj, Krishna reciprocated. So it is so wonderful to read Srimad Bhagavatam to learn more about not only Krishna, but Krishna's relationships with his devotees. Because we want to learn more about how Krishna shows his relationship, and the aspect of Lord Krishna, that how he shares and connects with his devotees, make us want to surrender to this Lord. Because Krishna is very personable. He's not, we come to the temple, we see Shri Radha Kunj Bihari, it is not just a brass murti there. These are deities that are performing magic in people's lives. We may not know it. They're performing magic in our own life. We may not even realize the magic that they're performing, but they are performing magic. Their request from us, it is not even an expectation, It's a humble, a very small request, just show a little love. Show a little love. In fact, even they are not saying show a little love. Our acharyas have told us that. If we love Krishna a little bit, Krishna will just love us back magnifold, right? And it's very important for us to meditate on this aspect of investing in understanding more about Krishna. The more we invest in understanding who Krishna is, the easier the process of surrender becomes. And we see this, right? The more and more we know about Krishna, the more and more it becomes easier to chant. The more and more it becomes easier for us to have good devotee association, to read. So I have personally found in my own journey of Krishna consciousness, when I go through a patch where I feel a little burnt out or a little like disconnected, like picking up the beads seems like I'm picking up, a 25-pound weight. Anyone else experience that, or just me? Huh? Yeah, sometimes you feel like that, right? Just a small bead bag, less than a pound, but to pick it up feels like, such a workout to do this. Like it's such an austerity, right? And whenever I go through that, immediately I have to tell myself, I need to fix my relationship with Krishna. Because my relationship with Krishna is not fully baked at this time. As it happens with all relationships, right? Any relationship, actually, to go on a slight tangent here, you have to keep working at it. We cannot say, just because this relationship has been established, that relationship is there. I don't need to work on it. But if you treat a relationship like that, you will never surrender. So think of all our relationships in the material world, right? Like spouses. If spouses think, we got married, our relationship is established, and then that's it, you should surrender to me, I should surrender to you, then it's a completely flawed relationship, right? You work at it. Parents, if the parent thinks, I gave birth to the child, that's it, now you're you surrender to me all the time, Doesn't work that way, right? They may do it as a little child, but then as they grow up, they're like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to surrender to you, right? Because it's natural. But if we invest in the relationship, then naturally that mood of surrender comes. And it also takes away, the surrender doesn't mean I am somebody's slave or somebody is above me and my job. No, it comes from the bottom of your heart. You feel like I want to serve them. I want to serve Krishna because Krishna is worthy of the service. I want to serve Krishna because that makes Krishna the most happy. I'm not serving Krishna for my pleasure. I am serving Krishna for his pleasure. And we see that even in our relationships, right? Our relationships pivot from being relationships that are based on material desires to relationships that are based on service. And that is truly how we can do surrender. So it is so important for us to work on our relationships all the time. So in bhakti also, if you ever find that you're in a position where you don't feel like doing it, take a step back and go back to your reading, chanting, investing in your relationship with Krishna. Because we have to keep working at it. We have to keep working on our relationship. And that way then lifting the 20-pound weight is like nothing. It's like a feather, But it will be a 25-pound weight dumbbell if you don't invest in the relationship. So it is very, very important for us to take time to learn more about Krishna. So on the topic of learning more about Krishna, and we kind of started speaking about Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, the Lord Krishna resides in all of our heart. One of the things that in Shikshashtakam, Mahaprabhu talks about cleansing of our heart, right? Our heart, even though because Krishna is so merciful that he's still residing in our heart, even though our hearts may not be clean. Even though our hearts may be full of anarthas, full of evil desires, full of non-favorable circumstances, the Lord still chooses to reside in that heart. But if we truly want to establish a relationship with Krishna, we'd want to clean our heart, right? Right? Like think about it. Like, I can give example of my house. Like our house is always in a perennial state of a tornado attacked it. Always. Like there's just never this thing. Now, I may be okay with it. I may be okay that my husband should be okay with it too, because we have a toddler who likes to be a tornado. But then at some point you feel like, okay, fine, we may be okay with it, but at some point I have to make the effort to clean up my house a little bit, right? I may be okay with it, but it's not okay. Like Krishna resides in my house. I need to do something about it, right? So it's very important for us, even though the Supreme Lord in his infinite mercy is perfectly okay to reside in an unclean heart, we have to clean our heart. We have to. It's just decency, at the very least, right? Etiquette. So it's work on cleaning our heart. So it is said that by hearing the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is one way our heart is going to be cleansed. So for the next 25 minutes or so, I want to speak a little bit about some pastimes of Mahaprabhu, particularly one person from Mahaprabhu's pastimes. This whole section of the class, and I have to share why this is very special, is actually from a class Amarendra Prabhu gave at our temple 5 years ago. I gave this class 5 years ago, and I've been looking for that class actually, because 5 years ago we didn't have a Tarun Kishore Prabhu. So 5 years ago, any classes that took place in our storefront center were either phone recordings on my phone or Gopal Chandra Prabhu's phone that was placed next to Amarendra Prabhu when he came, or Ram Vijay Prabhu holding a camera in his hand, holding his phone in his hand for an hour and 15 minutes. I don't know why it took us 4 months to get him a tripod. So for 4 months, Ram Vijay Prabhu would hold his hand, literally hold the camera and just sit right in front of the speaker. So we've shared some old pictures here, but you'll see it in the pictures. It's very funny now thinking about it. Now Tarun Kishore Prabhu has made it very easy. If you want to find an old class, you just go to Facebook or YouTube. It's all categorized. So this was a class of Amarendra Prabhu's I've been looking for last 3 years actually. Because it was a phenomenal class. Amarendra Prabhu was here that time for 6 weeks, and every week, for 4 weeks, he spoke about one of the Panchatattvas. So then we'll talk more about who the Panchatattvas are, but he spoke about each of them. He did Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit as a lead up to Gaur Purnima, because Prabhu had to leave right before Gaur Purnima. exceptional class, and I've been looking for those classes for a while. And this time when Amarendra Prabhu was here, I shared with him that series of classes that he gave here at our temple were my most favorite classes of his. Like hands down, they were one of my most favorite classes he gave. And he said some great points, and we were discussing about his class. And because I couldn't find those recordings when he was here, we met with him, and I quickly transcribed some of the key things that he said from his class, and I was really meditating that I wanted to speak about it here because it is such beautiful classes. So, but again, this happened in January, we get busy, we forget. So when I was asked, can we give class today, this was a topic I wanted to speak about, but I knew I had to listen to Amarendra Prabhu's class on this topic. So I looked online, and there are 30, 40 classes that Amarendra Prabhu has on this topic. If you search Advaita Acharya Amarendra Das, at least 7, 8 classes pop up in the first thing. By Krishna's divine arrangement, the class that I picked happened to be the class that he gave here. But there's no mention of the center or anything there because it was uploaded only in the last 2 years. And you know how I found out the class was the class he gave here? Because in the first 4, and Prabhu just walked out, it's funny, but because in the first 4 minutes of the class, he quotes Gopal Chandra Prabhu. He says, I was discussing this with Gopal Chandra Prabhu last night, and I decided to talk on this topic. And I was the minute he said that name, I'm this is the class I was looking for. So I was so excited to hear this class last night because this is, again, it's a beautiful class. So I will share the class on one of our WhatsApp groups. So devotees, please listen. It's a 1-hour class, a beautiful class. So in that class, so everything I'm saying from this point forward till almost the end of the class is a repetition of what Amarendra Prabhu shared in that class. I have to give full credit there. So in the class, Amarendra Prabhu mentions that, and it is also mentioned in our Shastras, that when we hear pastimes of Lord Krishna or Mahaprabhu, our hearts get cleansed. Particularly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Because Mahaprabhu is that incarnation of the Lord, purely coming with compassion and for mercy and for love for us. So hearing these pastimes really help to get our heart cleansed. And when our heart is more and more, our heart is cleansed, the more it becomes easy to surrender to the Lord. The more and more it is easy to welcome the Lord within our heart. So in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, there are 5 main principal characters, and on the altar, do we have the picture of the Panchatattva? We have, right? It's very hard to see from here because obviously the altar is. He put it on the screen? Oh, thank you. Give me 1 second. So you can see in this picture, these are the Panchatattva. And the Panchatattva, there is a beautiful prayer that comes that glorifies who the Panchatattva are. It comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It goes, Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam, Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam, Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So, okay. I'm very bad with my lefts and rights, so I'm going to tell by the color of the dhoti. So please, if I'm not going to tell you whether they're left or right of Mahaprabhu, so it's easy to. So this verse, Panchatattva Krishnam, describes the Panchatattva. So in the middle of the Panchatattva, we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? We see Mahaprabhu. And this verse, Panchatattva Krishnam, is important because it shows how Mahaprabhu, who's a combination of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, so 2 becomes 1 and 1 becomes 5. So Mahaprabhu here manifests himself in 5 different forms as a devotee, expansion of a devotee, incarnation of a devotee, pure devotee, and devotional energy. So this verse breaks it down into who is who. So when you look at this verse, Bhakta Rupa, which Bhakta Rupa means in the form of a devotee, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because Mahaprabhu, who's in the middle, he's coming as a devotee. Then the deity on who's wearing the blue dhoti, that is Nityananda Prabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu manifests as he is the Bhakta Avatar, Swarupakam. Swarupakam is Nityananda Prabhu. Swarupakam here means expansion of a devotee. Nityananda Prabhu is expansion of Balaram, Anantashesha. So Swarupakam here is Nityananda Prabhu. So Bhakta Rupa is Mahaprabhu in the middle. Swarupakam is Nityananda Prabhu, who's wearing the blue dhoti. Then Bhakta Avataram, which is in the incarnation of a devotee, that is Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya is a combination of Mahaprabhu and Lord Shiva. Then we come to the other side of the painting, where you have, what color is it showing? Okay, in that pinkish color, that is Gadadhar. Gadadhar Pandit, right? Yes, Gadadhar. So in this class, actually, with the class I was talking about, Prabhu gives very nice tips to know who's who. So if you've seen this picture of Panchatattva and always confused who is where, he actually explains. Prabhu gives very nice tips to do this. When I was a child, the only person I knew in this picture very easily was Advaita Acharya, because he has a beard. And in this class, Amrinda Prabhu jokes, what if Advaita Acharya shaves? Then what are you going to do? How do you know who he is? So it's a very valid point actually to know who they are, so that your knowledge of them is not dependent on a beard. But continuing this, we have Gadadhar Pandit here, who is Bhakti Shakti. So Bhakti Shaktikam, Gadadhar Pandit, who represents Srimati Radharani, and Bhaktakyam, who is Srivas Thakur, who is standing right directly in front of Gadadhar Pandit. So these are and that represents the devotional energy. So these are Panchatattva, the 5 principal expansions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after Aarti, when you come close to take darshan, it is the picture that is at the lotus feet of Gaur Nitai. So very often when we give classes and we have discussions, we speak about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Today, for the next 20-ish minutes, we're going to speak about Advaita Acharya. Feb 15 is Advaita Acharya's appearance day. So it is a very important opportunity for us to meditate on who Advaita Acharya is. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj is sharing with us who Advaita Acharya is based on something that was found in the diary of Swarup Damodar that explains who Advaita Acharya is. He says, Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Yashajat Yada Tasya Vatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvara Advaitam Harinadvaitam Acharyam Bhakti Sashanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tvam Advaitacharyam Ashraye. He says, Mahavishnu is the master of the universe, which he creates through his power of Maya. Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of this Supreme Lord. He is known as Advaita because he is none other than Hari as Acharya, because he is the preceptor of devotion. I take shelter of the Supreme Lord Advaita Acharya, who is the incarnation of a devotee. And it is further described in Chaitanya Charitamrita how Advaita Acharya is a combination of Lord Shiva and Mahavishnu, that comes as an incarnation of a devotee. That's why it's Bhaktavatara is Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya, he was, we're going to just briefly speaking about his life. He was born in 1434 in Bengal to Kubera Pandit and Srimati Nabha Devi. So it's important to note that the first words that came out of Advaita Acharya's mouth, does anybody know? Was Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And Advaita Acharya, who was born almost 60 years before Mahaprabhu was born. So when Mahaprabhu appeared, Advaita Acharya was already almost a senior citizen, like he was already older. But when he was born, the first words that came from his mouth were Shri Krishna Chaitanya, establishing Advaita Acharya is not being an ordinary being, like being an incarnation of deities together. So Advaita Acharya became a disciple. In later, his parents were very spiritual, and they moved to Shantipur on the banks of Ganga. Today, if you do go to Shantipur as part of Navadip Parikrama, you see temples that dedicated to Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was a great scholar from a young age. He was always interested in Shastras and all of the studies, and that is where he was awarded the title Acharya. Advaita Acharya lost his parents at a young age. And while in Gaya, to perform the rituals for his parents, the Shraddha ceremony, he comes in contact with Srila Madhavendra Puri. And when he meets Madhavendra Puri, he is so amazed at Madhavendra Puri's devotion, his love, that immediately he surrenders to Madhavendra Puri on the spot there. And Madhavendra Puri becomes the disciple of Advaitacharya, spiritual master of Advaitacharya. In bringing that in context, Madhavendra Puri's disciple is Ishvara Puri, and then his disciple is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Advaitacharya is God brother of Ishvara Puri. So they have the same spiritual master. While in the Shraddh ceremony, one important thing in the when you do Shraddh for a parent is like you have to give, offerings of the Shraddh, and it is given to the most spiritual person there. And at a time where there was very strong, caste system was very well established, Advaitacharya, instead of giving it to some of the Brahmanas that were there, takes his offering and gives it to Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was a Muslim. He was a Muslim but a pure devotee of the Lord. In fact, he was beaten multiple times in the marketplace. So those of you who are familiar with Indian history, this is the 15th century we're talking about. Islam was very prevalent in India at that time. This is right after the Mughal invasion was still going on. So he was born to a Muslim family, but he was a pure devotee of the Lord. But because of his devotion, Advaitacharya gives him that first offering, gives him that privilege. So in this pastime, just of what happened in Gaya in the Shraddh ceremony, there are 3 things we can learn, which is very practical in our own devotion, but also in the context of surrender. The first thing is, who is Advaitacharya? He is Vishnu and Shiva combined. So he's not an ordinary being there, right? Does he need to take a spiritual master? Does he need to surrender to a devotee? No, but he surrenders to his own devotee here. So because he sees Madhavendra Puri is so pure, the Supreme Lord is so eager to serve his own devotee that when the devotion of that devotee is so pure, the Lord surrenders to the devotee. So think about this in the context that if we surrender to the Lord is obliged to surrender to us. Isn't that beautiful? And there are so many examples from our scriptures where we can see the Lord surrenders to his devotee. The most famous of this is the Damodar Leela. In the pastime of Damodar Leela, it is not even like Mata Yashoda is like meditating and she wants to surrender. Her love is so pure for the Supreme Lord. Even to bind Krishna, her love is so pure because she wants to protect her child from not becoming a tornado. It's a good idea. I should probably do that to my child too. But anyway, so it's like, she genuinely wants to protect him, right? Her love is so pure that in the Bhagavatam, it's described that the honor that even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva don't get, Mata Yashoda got to bind Krishna. Krishna surrenders to his devotees. So here in this pastime, Advaitacharya, by his own example, showing that if the devotee is like Madhavendra Puri, so pure, the Lord is so eager to serve him. And this is an example of where Krishna, if one has unshakable faith in the Supreme Lord, Krishna will drop everything and surrender for us. Krishna appears here just to be able to serve his own devotee. He's showing us as Advaita, as Mahavishnu here, that he wants to serve his own devotee. Krishna throughout in the Shastra, so many pastimes you can see, where Krishna drops everything to serve his devotees. Prahlad Maharaj, there's a very beautiful pastime Radhika Raman Prabhu shares about how when it's described that, before when the palace incident was happening on the material world where Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj were talking up in Vaikuntha, Krishna was jumping. He was going from this corner to this corner. So Lakshmi Devi asked him, why are you so restless? What's happening? He's like, I don't know which pillar Prahlad is going to point. I need to be ready to come out of that pillar. He's not giving a hint. And I love that because in my head I can always visualize that Krishna is just in the start of a race where they have the ready, set, go. You have a pose that the athletes take, right? And they're just waiting for the gun to be fired so they can jet to propel. I always picture Nrsimhadev in that position, waiting. When will Prahlad say, when will Hiranyakashipu break the pillar so I can jump out? That anxiety. But this is the eagerness the Lord has to serve. When Krishna gets the opportunity to be the charioteer of Arjuna, does Krishna say, no, let's rain check. I don't want to be a charioteer. No, right? To be a charioteer, actually, obviously they say in the Shastra how the way Arjuna had to Arjuna had to when he had to tell Krishna which direction to go, because it's so loud, he couldn't tell Krishna. He would have to use his legs sometime, which itself sounds like a little crazy. But on a lighter note, I just think how difficult it is to drive somebody. If you've ever been a witness of backseat driving, you know how painful it is to drive somebody. Some people are laughing. I think you know what it means. Trying to drive and someone behind says, no, don't take that route. That's too long. Take this route. No, don't go there. Go there instead. It is so annoying. So, poor Krishna, he's a charioteer. He's not only having to take physical abuse, it's difficult. But Krishna does it. Why? To serve his devotee. In fact, Krishna, when one surrenders to Krishna, now we spoke all this while about how to surrender to Krishna, right? But this is an example of when one surrenders to Krishna, what Krishna's surrender looks like is so beautiful. Like Krishna's surrender is, Krishna will break his own promise to show his surrender. Bhishma Dev's only desire was, I just want to see Krishna break a vow. I just want to see Krishna fight. It seems like almost impossible. The Supreme Lord has taken a promise for one of his devotees. He's given the vow that I will not pick up a weapon, but for the pleasure of another devotee who has the complete opposite desire, Krishna breaks his own vow. That is what Krishna does. For one who has surrendered, Bhishma Dev says in his prayers, right, I've surrendered my mind, body and words to you while he's lying on the bed of arrows. To that Bhishma Dev, Krishna will do anything. So here Mahaprabhu, when Advaita Acharya is taking shelter of Madhavendra Puri, he's showing that for the Supreme Lord is eager to serve those devotees of surrender to him. The second thing here is, as Lord Shiva, he is showing the importance of accepting a spiritual master. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter that, when he says, whatever actions great men do, common men follow. After that, Krishna says, even I am bound by those regulations. That if I do something wrong, then people will say, well, Krishna did it, I can do this too, right? So Supreme Lord himself takes a guru in Krishna Leela to show us the importance of taking spiritual master. And here also Advaita Acharya is embodying that, even though he is an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Lord Shiva, he does not need a spiritual master. Yet he is going to take a spiritual master to show us the importance of taking shelter of a high-class devotee. In Shveteshwar Upanishad, it is said, Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tata guru tasyaite katita hyarthat prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. That means one has to surrender not only to Krishna, one has to surrender to a spiritual master. Without Guru, our spiritual journey will not begin. That is why we say initiation. Initiation, sometimes we think once we get initiated, chalo, all done. I'm done. I've hit my goal. In this class that Amrendra Prabhu says, it's like getting like a Padma Bhushan. Like we're just like got it. We hit the award. We're happy, right? But it's not that. Initiation is literally the beginning. It is the least that you can do to start your spiritual journey, because until we ask, who is my spiritual master, we cannot begin our spiritual journey. It's not something that you have to do in haste. It takes process, right? But once you find your spiritual master and you surrender to the spiritual master, it's important to, the empowerment and the mercy you receive from the spiritual master when you surrendered is amazing. So if one has implicit faith in Krishna and implicit faith in the Guru, magic happens, right? We see that in the life of Srila Prabhupada. It took Srila Prabhupada a long time to find his spiritual master, to find Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada was not someone who at all was influenced by blind faith. Prabhupada from a young age was taught to question. So even when his friend wanted to take him to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada said, I don't want to go. All these like sadhus, they keep just talking, like I don't believe in it, I don't want to go. But his friend takes him there and they go to the Ultadanga Junction and they meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Prabhupada is so floored by this pure devotee that he's encountering, and he surrenders to him on the spot. And the power of Prabhupada's surrender and the power of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was, on that first meeting, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives one instruction. Actually, it's not even an instruction at that point. It is a question. You are educated young men. Why are you not taking the teachings of Mahaprabhu outside? That's it. That one sentence becomes the life mission of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And it's that one mission which is why we're all here today. It is because Prabhupada in 1922 took surrender to his spiritual master and took that one instruction to heart. That is the power of a guru. So here Advaita Acharya is showing to us the importance of surrendering to a devotee. And the third thing we can learn from this pastime of what happened in Gaya is that when he gives the offering from the Shraddh ceremony to Haridas Thakur, he's teaching us that a pure devotee is not bounded by society's definition of who is pure. Caste, creed, religion, gender, none of that matter when it comes to pure devotion service. So we have to be extremely careful when we look at somebody and judge them for their devotion, because we do not know what a pure devotee they are. Haridas Thakur was judged because of his faith that he was born in, but his Mahaprabhu knew the level of his devotion. Advaita Acharya knew the level of his devotion. That is why he surrendered. So when we have to surrender to someone, look at the devotion by itself, not taint it with other material things that are around you like gender, caste, creed, race, because then it makes it very difficult for us to surrender to the Lord. So it's very funny actually. It's funny because I was quoting the class by Amrendra Prabhu, and there was one point he said in the class that I really liked, and that was the only point I remembered for 5 years. I didn't remember the rest of his class, and that's the point he makes in the last 2 minutes of the class. And I'm looking at the time and I'm like, I have 1 minute to make that same point in the end of the class, but we're going to try, maybe go a few minutes over, so forgive me for that. So Advaita Acharya's, one of the main contribution of Advaita Acharya, for which we should be eternally grateful to Advaita Acharya, who was which one? What was his main contribution? Does anyone know? I'm sorry? Exactly. Advaita Acharya actually is known as, he's known as Gaura Ana Thakur, the one who brought Gauranga Mahaprabhu to this world. If it was not for Advaita Acharya, Mahaprabhu would not have come to this world at the time he came. We don't know when he would have come. It says in the Bhagavatam, Krishna Vanam Tusha Krishna, at some point Mahaprabhu was going to come. But it was because of Advaita Acharya Mahaprabhu is here. So Advaita Acharya and Srivas Thakur, they used to get together and have their own Sangha back in Navadvip, where they would chant and read together. But what happened was, that time was there were just atheistic people all around. There was just a lot of disturbance. People, in fact, it's in the scriptures is described, when Advaita Acharya and Srivas Thakur would do kirtan, the Hindus would complain, the Muslims would complain also. Both of them were complaining, this is so loud. So you couldn't even chant in peace. It was like that bad then, you know. And people were very depressed. It was a very materialistic, atheistic society. And people were not believing in God. Seeing this, because Advaita Acharya is a pure devotee, he is not only Mahavishnu, he is Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is Ashutosh. He is the most compassionate of everybody. He could not see the suffering of these people. He could not see the suffering. So because he could not see the suffering of the devotees, Advaita Acharya kept wondering, who is going to come to save these people? Somebody needs to come to save these people. And he remembered, then he meditated on a verse that comes in one of our Shastras. It is Tulsi dalamatrena jalasya chalukenava vikrinite swam atmanam bhaktebhyo bhakta vatsalaha. Sri Krishna, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, sells himself to a devotee who offers him merely a tulsi leaf and a palmful of water. Krishna sells himself to that devotee who offers tulsi leaf and a palmful of water. So for years, Advaita Acharya meditated on his Shalagram Shila by offering tulsi leaves and water. His meditation was so strong, it was so powerful that Mahaprabhu was compelled to appear. Because of Advaita Acharya's staunch faith and Advaita Acharya's compassion for the world. Because of Advaita Acharya's compassion, Mahaprabhu appeared, and then, of course, wonderful pastimes happened, right? As Advaita Acharya's appearance day is coming up this Thursday, it is very important to acknowledge that we are all also here because somebody prayed very intensely for us. We are all here in our devotion because somebody prayed intensely for us. And if you don't know who prayed intensely for you, you can be well rested that Advaita Acharya definitely prayed for all of us, which is why Mahaprabhu is here. And Advaita, and in our lives, there have been compassionate people who have prayed for us to come into the spiritual path. They embody Advaita Acharya. So every single devotee here is a devotee because of the mercy of Advaita Acharya. And when we reflect on this, that whenever there's a spirit of giving Krishna to others is found, giving Krishna to people because you're compassionate about them, that comes from Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya did not know these people that he was praying for. He was just praying for them. And because his prayer was so intense, Mahaprabhu appeared. So whenever we look in our life and we think of someone who extended themselves, who went above and beyond to give Krishna to you out of their compassion, they are all generals in Advaita Acharya's army of compassion. And it is because of them we are able to serve in Krishna. And sometimes we forget it. And this is why this point when Prabhu mentioned in the class, it really resounded with me, because I think of in my own devotional service, how I had, we think of our spiritual master, of course, we think of our Shiksha Gurus, but we tend to forget that person sometimes who brought us into Krishna consciousness, who prayed for us, right? My parents got introduced to Krishna consciousness when we were living in Doha, Qatar. And how my parents got introduced was one of our neighbors. They had just moved into our apartment, and this is in 1992. There were not a lot of Indian people living in the Middle East then, and there was only one other Indian family, us and another Indian family in this apartment. So this family that came, they came and asked my parents, you have a daughter, we have a daughter, like you're Indian, we're Indian, why don't you come to our house one day for a meal? That was it. They didn't know us. They met us. I remember meeting them in the lobby of our building, that's it. And they invited us to their home. They told us more about Krishna. They told us more about Prabhupada. They introduced my parents. I should say more than me, my parents. And then that's it. It took one family praying, let's help the other family, extending themselves. They didn't need to do that. They didn't need to do that at all. But because they did it, my parents are devotees. Because of them, I'm a devotee. Because of my parents, many other people became devotees. That is the beauty of these devotees who are compassionate for others. Because they just light this small spark that spreads. It spreads really fast. And once it spreads, it is the kind of this bhakti fire that you want to spread. Because it doesn't stop. You want to give. It inspires you to give more and more. So this Advaita Acharya's appearance day, which is on Feb 15th, take a moment to think about those devotees in your life because of whom you are a devotee today. That devotee who bought prasadam for you when you were not feeling well. That devotee who chanted for you for a reason. That devotee, who I remember, I'm seeing Raghu here, his father, you obviously don't know this, because many, many years ago, I used to like to draw, and his dad would come from his office to my parents' apartment in Dubai with stashes of paper, for me to just draw on. And it's been, obviously I don't draw anymore, as we're talking about 30 years ago, but I still remember that, It's small stuff like this we don't forget, because devotees are so compassionate. In this class, Amrendra Prabhu was sharing a story of this devotee, of this gentleman who was studying in Boston in the 80s, and he would go to the Boston temple once in a while, and Niranjan Maharaj at that time was serving in the Boston temple, and Niranjan Maharaj used to take prasadam and go, once in a while this gentleman would go to the temple. Sometimes he wouldn't come, but because he lived close to the temple, Niranjan Maharaj would ride on a bike and go drop him prasadam to this devotee in his college apartment, out of so much of compassion, just to give prasadam to this devotee. And this, not even a devotee, this was just a guest who was coming to the temple actually. Eventually that gentleman finished his studies or his work, went back to India, and he settled there and everything. Many years pass, his son ends up becoming a devotee. And one Sunday in Chowpatty, Niranjan Maharaj is there for a Sunday program. The son invites the father to come. Son doesn't know this backstory. He invites his father to come, and the minute his father is sitting and he sees Niranjan Maharaj, he just starts crying. Like he remembers what Niranjan Maharaj did for him. And then his son becomes a devotee. And then eventually his son, when he passes away at a very young age with cancer, when he was passing away, his spiritual master, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, was sitting personally next to him, praying for him. This is the compassion of devotees. You just don't know how it starts and how it ends. So this Advaita Acharya's appearance day, my humble request to all of you, if I can give an advice, is take a moment to think of the people who brought us to this temple, who brought us to this path of bhakti, and say thank you to them. Because if it wasn't for their genuine compassion to care for somebody else, this wouldn't happen. We see this so much, especially when book distributors, right? Why we stand outside? Why you to stand outside like grocery stores or go to events to distribute books? Why? Nobody's. Once I remember when I was in college, I was distributing books. I ran into someone from my own college. So he asked me, "Is this like your side business? Like you're trying to make more money?" I said, "No." There's definitely no money in it. Just letting everybody know, there's no money in what happens when we do stand outside distribute books. But why we're doing this? Why? Like Gopabha Prabhu, Dashraman Prabhu, devotees who go outside. Why are you standing outside? Like, why do you do it? Huh? Sure, pass the knowledge, but why do you want to pass the knowledge? Why? Why do you want to pass the knowledge? It's not just for them. I'm not nitpicking on you because you're like front seaters in the class, but devotees, why do you want to give the knowledge? Because we benefited, right? But then what? Because we benefited, that means you want to help somebody else, right? The reason we distribute books is not for our pleasure. It is because we benefited from this. We want the world to be a better place. So if you choose not to take a book, we're okay with it. But we do it because we want to help you. Because you don't know whose life is going to change. Last Sunday, one of the guests here shared a story with me where one of their neighbors, they had invited them to come to the Sunday program a few times, but their neighbor they weren't very interested in coming. Then a few weeks ago, the neighbor's daughter gets a book I don't know if she got a book from a book rack or from a distributor. She got the Bhagavad Gita. This young girl in her 20s gets the Bhagavad Gita, reads the first two chapters, very interested, and then tells her parents, we need to find the nearby temple to go to the temple. And then they came to the temple like last week. And the neighbors were so surprised, like, we didn't know you were coming, right? But then we were discussing this. It's because those neighbors prayed for them. The daughter may be the instrument why she came, but the neighbors who come regularly to our temple prayed that we wish they come, and they came. So the power of prayer is so significant, and without acknowledging that we are here because somebody prayed for us, we become miserly. It prevents us to fully surrender to Krishna because we have not expressed gratitude to people who prayed for us. So please take this opportunity, Advaita Acharya's appearance day, which happens to be so close to Valentine's Day this year, to express our gratitude to devotees who prayed for us, to express our gratitude to devotees who showed compassion to us, who extended themselves just for us. It's because of them we're devotees. Prabhupada said this, people do not stay in this movement because of the philosophy. How many of us are here because we are like, no, this is Bhagavad Gita is very good philosophy. You may come because of that, but you stay because of relationships. You stay because of people. If basically we said after this class, we're just going to send you away and not give you prashadam, next Sunday we'll have only 1/10 of the audience here, So why? It's because, prashadam is an important part of relationship building, but it is relationships. We stay for the relationship. We stay for the people. We may come for philosophy, we may come for process, but we stay for people. So it's so important for us to express our gratitude to the people who set this up for us. So with that, I want to personally thank each one of you, particularly some of you here who have known me for many, many years, that I can say this, and if you're watching also online, that I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for the prayers of many, many devotees. My daughter would not be here if it wasn't for the prayer of many devotees. Those of you who know the story know what power of prayers are. So you've all prayed for us, so eternally grateful to all of you, and I really hope that I can continue to recognize that it is because of you all extending yourself, I am a devotee. So thank you so much for that, and thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for such a wonderful class, Mataji. Let us give another round of applause for Mataji. Our dear Her Grace Mahasundari Mataji spoke beautifully about this very important topic, process of surrender. How you can get to that platform of unconditional love. So, I was remembering the pastime of Srila Prabhupada. One time, a devotee was telling Srila Prabhupada, I am amazed at how the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is controlling the law of karma, controlling all the planets, making sure all the planet, each and every planet is rotating in its orbit. So Srila Prabhupada said, forget about Krishna controlling all the planets. We will show you how to control Krishna. He was pointing to the picture of Mother Yashoda chasing Krishna with a stick. So if we surrender to Krishna, of course Krishna will surrender to you out of love, sweet love. So let us thank Mataji again for such a beautiful class. The next part of the program is Arati. We request devotees to stand up for the Arati. Thank you. Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की नवद्वीप धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगामयी की यमुनामयी की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की संकीर्तन यज्ञ की बृहद मृदंगा की समवेद भक्त वृंद की गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga.